Good evening, good evening. This is the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin, and I hope my mic levels are okay. But, anyways, hope you guys are having a good Saturday. It was a great day in New York. Very sunny, cool, awesome. Being in the northeast of the United States during this time of year, with all the fall colors and stuff. When I leave this area, it's going to be tough because I grew up having lots of colors, with the trees changing and all that. And I think in a few years, I'm going to be probably living in Central or South America or something like that, where just the cost of living is cheaper. But for now, it's gorgeous. So, nice guy behavior. This has been something that's been coming up. Well, it's coming up for me all the time because that's what I do. It's what I do. And I have some new clients, and they're very interesting characters. And so with one of them, he didn't really seem to want to accept the fact that he was one of these characters. Okay, that he was one of the people afflicted with nice guy syndrome. And so I went through our conversations and I started just making notes on the things that he said, and I was just marking them down, and just to then revisit them and show him, look, these are quotes from you. This is how you think. And so I had to show him, hold up that mirror. And that's part of the difficulty with nice guy syndrome, because you have to be all right with seeing yourself as you are right now. Because a lot of us, just part of the human condition is to not want to see ourselves as we are, only as what we think we are. And that can be kind of difficult, right? To have the truth set in front of you. But honestly, the pathway to getting in touch with your core, with your essential self, it requires a bit of discomfort, sometimes even pain. And because behind pain usually is truth. And what's in front of pain is usually deflection, sometimes anger, sometimes delusion, all sorts of things that kind of hide us from who we actually are. And you think that there's got to be a smoother, easier way to get there, but there isn't. There really isn't. It requires a bit of discomfort. Now, some people have more pain than others, and that's just natural. That's life. That has a lot to do with our upbringing and the wiring in our brain of how we process things. So, some people will just have a much harder time than others, but nonetheless, there's going to be some sort of discomfort involved. So we're going to get into that, but before we get into that, I'm going to just play my Dominance Academy commercial.
Is your sex life stagnant? Do you have no respect from women? Welcome to the Dominance Academy, your gateway to revitalizing your masculine identity. Rooted in timeless values and traditional roles, the Dominance Academy offers practical solutions, expert guidance, and unwavering support to help you unravel the challenges of intimacy and forge a deeper connection with yourself. You will invigorate your masculine leadership and confidence, which will have a profound effect on your romantic life. Your professor, Mr. Justin, is a leader in the realms of sexual education, relationship dynamics, and the arcane arts of BDSM. His curriculum teaches the mysteries behind polarity and structured power dynamics, weaving them into the fabric of flourishing relationships. The results when dealing with women is you will have intense influence over how they behave around you, fucking their minds, hearts, and bodies into joyous submission. Join me at the Dominance Academy and restore your identity while discovering the joy of a fulfilling masculine presence. It's time to step into your role as a leader and reclaim your life. Is your sex life stagnant? Do you have no respect from women? Well,
All right, sorry about that. I had the loop button stuck on there. Apologies. So, yeah, that's my commercial. Um, so any of you guys out here listening in the live or catching on the replay, if you're having issues in your relationship, if there's that roommate feeling going on, which is all too common in relationships, where you just develop a sense of comfort, right? And it's too comfortable. Like, comfort is good, but when it's too comfortable, uh, couples tend to develop into sort of like a roommate situation. You feel more detached than you do attached, even though you're living under the same roof. Dead bedrooms, they occur within 70% of marriages. And so if that's you, right, that spark is not there, or you're having trouble igniting that sort of feeling with dating or what have you, get in touch with me. The links are available in the description of every video. You can set up a free call from the Calendly link that's in there. So take it upon yourself to utilize my free time. All right, so nice guy behavior. Nice guy behavior has a whole host of reasons why it forms. A typical formula is when the father is not in the home, or the father is like a wet towel. Like he's very much of a simp or a nice guy, and he's got a rubber spine. The wife wears the pants. She's super bossy. She's the authoritarian, and the male child, learns to follow what his father has been doing, or if he's not in the picture, he basically just acquiesces to the mother's authority and follows in her footsteps, and then becomes codependent. And that's really the beginnings of that stuff, is the codependency and seeking validation from the mother figure. And that becomes so entrenched because the mother is the first female relationship that the male child has, in the same way that the father is the first male relationship that the daughter has. So, and if the dad's not there or the mom's not there, then it kind of screws things up, and either not there in presence or not there physically. And so from there, you get all sorts of weird behaviors in order to recreate that connection with the mother archetype or the father archetype, right? And it doesn't go away, right? So the bulk of my clients, they age from 35 to 55. That's the age of, so these are grown men, right? Some of them even have families, they have businesses. Some of them are very successful, wealthy, world travelers, Fortune 500 guys, and they have this thing going on inside them, because just because life goes on, you take your trauma with you. Like, it doesn't just kind of like seep out and just go away because you've grown up, like physically, right? Your cells getting older will not make the things in your mind go away. It just doesn't work that way. You have to actually unearth them, and then start looking in the mirror and saying, okay, how is this affecting my life? And start looking at your patterns, looking at your thought patterns, your verbal patterns, and your behavior patterns. And this will indicate to you where you're at. And then from that point, you can start stopping some of these behaviors because they're habitual. And then you can start progressing into what you actually want to do, okay? Because a lot of the beliefs that occur from the development of simp syndrome or nice guy syndrome, they're not beliefs that you created. They're beliefs that you acquired, largely without your consent. So as an adult, it's incumbent upon you to then choose, right? You can choose what you believe in. You can choose what you perceive. You can choose your behaviors. You can choose your habits, all right? But that's a hard thing to do. Like, it's easier said than done, obviously. So, simp, nice guy behaviors. I'm going to just read through some of these from my notes. A big one is one-itis, right? If you're not familiar with one-itis, this is when you have a fixation on one particular woman. This could be the only woman in your life, or you could be seeing many women, but just one of them happens to be extra super special to you. And often there's no reason for it other than her ability to give you attention and you pedestalizing her appearance. So you see her and you're like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. And to you, she's just flawless. And this clouds your vision and your ability to actually sort out her behavior and see exactly how is her behavior serving you? How is it beneficial to your life? Or are you just constantly giving, and hoping that this pretty looking being who gives you just crumbs of attention can stay in your life? You know, maybe she sends a message once a week and then you're like, oh boy, and you get all excited, right? So that's one-itis. Waiting, right? Waiting on the woman, all right? This is really common as well. That coincides with one-itis, where you'll make sure that you're free, right? You're always checking your phone. You're always waiting on the inputs, whether it's like a physical input or a text input, verbal input coming from her. And because you've built up this angelic super being in your mind. And this is dehumanizing, right? It's the funny thing is that when guys do this, they pedestalize the woman into something beyond human, or special, more special than a regular human. And this actually creates more distance, even though he believes that it's making her more special. And he's like, oh, I'm treating her super special, but it actually creates more distance. It doesn't bring her closer to him. Okay. What did I write here? Feeling up with attention and feeling down when ignored. All right. So this is also part of the simp syndrome, where, and again, it goes back to childhood when you've got this codependency set up with the mom archetype. Early on, these guys learned that when I got attention from mom, I got approval, and that feels good. And when I don't get the attention that I seek, it feels like disapproval, and I don't feel good. So the male child then learns to do these things in order to avoid the and at the same time avoid the things that will prevent attention and approval, and move like actions towards getting attention and approval. And again, if this isn't dealt with, the guys continue this well into adulthood, right? So then when they do get attention from the girl that they're pedestalizing, he gets really up, like his emotions are up, he's feeling excited, he's feeling energized, right? He's feeling alive, right? And then he gets down when that goes away, you know, and he's like, oh my gosh, she's ghosting me, right? Why isn't she paying attention to me? Like, and he starts thinking of ways, oh man, I should, you know, I want to send her messages. Oh no, if I send her too many messages, then it'll sound like I'm needy. But he already is needy, right? Or else he wouldn't be thinking this way in the first place. You know, crying over a woman, right? That's another one here. Like getting upset over, like, granted, like, yes, that's not in all cases. This is strictly in the realm of nice guy simp syndrome, where it's a new connection and it's like, oh, she's not paying attention to me, or she blew me off, and you're getting really emotionally worked up and crying over it. And it's like somebody that you've known for what, like a couple of weeks, right? And you know, for you ladies who are watching thinking this is ridiculous, it actually happens. Like, this is real stuff. All right. I've explained, or I've mentioned deering. All right. Deering is something that simps do all the time, that nice guys do all the time. And it stands for defending, explaining, Pardon me. It stands for defending, explaining, excusing, and rationalizing. And nice guy behavior will do this. They will, like with the, the woman's not paying attention to him, or she's being rude to him, or she's outright manipulating him. He will defend his position. Like if someone looks at him and goes, dude, you're being a fool, he'll defend that position. He'll defend her. He'll excuse her behavior. He'll rationalize her behavior, right? And it's all an attempt. Oh, and then he'll like go on to explain himself, such that he can, like, with the rationalization, he can explain himself of why he's doing it, why it's not him like pandering or simping or being over the top or anything like that, or out of control. All right. And yeah, so deering is something that nice guys do constantly. Ignoring problem areas of the self and the woman. So one of the things about nice guy syndrome is not wanting to rock the boat, and because they don't like conflict. Because if they take one of their needs that's not being actually met, and they say, hey, this is one of my needs, it's not being met, I need to talk about this, this needs to be addressed, that's going to potentially rock the boat and cause friction, which could potentially result in the woman not paying attention to him anymore, and that's going to hurt. So this is something that he's definitely not going to do. So he's going to ignore the problem areas within himself, and he's going to ignore the problem areas in her, because if he brings up something in her behavior that he doesn't like, it could possibly upset her, and she's going to go away, and that's death to the nice guy, right? Death to his one-itis. Seeing the woman as an opportunity, right? Like this is where those phrases like, ooh, maybe this weekend I'll get lucky with her, okay? Because when you have one-itis and you're pedestalizing women, you see them as this opportunity. You see this as like an achievement of some sort. And when the actuality is that when you're a man with a capital M and you understand your ability to influence, you understand your ability to actually nurture and guide and lead, and being able to, like in the ad, fucking her mind, her heart, and her body, you realize that you can have great impact on women. And therefore, once you understand that, you actually become the opportunity, not her, because you're not getting deeply affected in that way. Like you're not getting mind fucked. You're when you have an orgasm, it doesn't like change your consciousness the way it can for a woman. It's just it's just localized to your pubic region, and it feels good, but it's not transformative, right? So with that understanding, it's like, yeah, I can lead her to a different self, and that's very powerful, and therefore I'm the opportunity. Well, the man with a capital M, not males, not nice guys, right? Because they don't do that. They can't do that, because all of their attention, all of their energy is not on themselves. It's actually on her. And to be fair, a lot of ladies will enjoy this, right? Because, men will not shower women with attention. I will not do this. I will not do this with my woman. I won't shower her with attention, because anything you get for free in life is not valued. Things that you that you work for, and that's given to you in earnest, and you are recognized for your efforts, that's valued. And so nice guys will never possibly think in these terms, because they're afraid of losing that opportunity, and they see themselves as the option. Shout out to Steve. He's talking about options and opportunities. They see themselves as the option, and they're like, oh yeah, she's got so many guys in her DMs, and there's all these guys who would like to take her out and have sex with her, and I only measure up to them in this way or that way, and I'm just an option. amongst many. And and this is indicative of nice guy behavior, nice guy syndrome. Seeing things from the woman's perspective that you're, oh, that's, I already went over that, sorry. Operating in the woman's frame. Okay, so frame. Frame is simply just conversational perspective. That's all it is, really. It's saying, pardon me. Frame is basically the perspective that you see on a particular subject. Okay, how you see the world, how you see life, how you see just one small thing happening in life. Like, that's your frame. All right. And guys with nice guy syndrome, they will always defer to the woman's frame, right? Because they feel like, if I side with her, then I can minimize the opportunities for or minimize the chances for being dismissed. I can minimize the chances of rejection. And so a lot of their efforts are paying attention to her frame so that he can figure out how to stay in it. So he can kind of come off as an ally and not something to be, not something as a challenge to her frame. All right. But here's the thing. Something that's very attractive is mental domination, where a woman feels that you have dominated her mentally without raising your voice, without challenging her with logic, but more so with wit, and not even laying a hand on her, right? And so she gets a sense of like, okay, like, if basically, like, if you can dominate me with my clothes on, then I don't really have to worry about you dominating me with my clothes off. And if the guy's constantly operating in her frame, there's no chance for that to happen, right? There's no opportunity for him to actually stand on his square because he's standing on hers. Okay, and this is, again, what this does is it says to the woman, in other words, hey, I'm really friendly. I'm a non-threat. You don't have to worry about me. I'm really, really nice. And in some respects, this is appreciated. Like, I think women appreciate this. Like, who doesn't like nice people, right? Well, I'm sure there's some people out there that loathe them, but I think most people like someone who's easygoing, who's nice, who's giving, who's attentive, and all this stuff. And and women are not exempt from that. So this is why nice guys get used, or they feel used, but they're only used in the sense that they allow it to happen. They willingly give up their power and say, here, take my time. Here, take my resources. Here, take my sex if you'll have it. Please have it. And if you're willing, I will give it to you with no question. Take everything. Take my pride. Take my dignity. Take my identity. Take my thought processes. Take my beliefs. Take my perceptions. Just take it all. Just hold me. Hold me in your frame. Hold me in your arms. Kiss me and tell me I'm a good boy. All right? Yeah, it's messed up. I'm telling you, this is. I mean, I'm exaggerating and being humorous, but this is really what's happening. It's really what's happening in the subconscious of a lot of guys. A lot. Okay, so operating the woman's frame, being emotional. That's another one. A lot of guys, not all of them, but a lot of dudes with nice guy syndrome, they'll be overly emotional. Now, I'm not saying that it's good to be emotionless. It's actually impossible as a human unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath. But, so aside from that, we all have our emotions, right? And we all have our emotions. But there's a difference between having emotions, recognizing them, and then moving accordingly, which what they call emotional intelligence, and moving through your emotions, as like fuel in your gas tank. This is not a good way to move as a man, and this is the way a lot of males operate. They have emotions in their fuel tank, and so a lot of times when they're denied the things that they're expecting, right, otherwise known as covert contracts, that which is like, if I do X, then I deserve Y. Okay, if I take her to dinner, then I deserve a blowjob, or I deserve sex, or I deserve another date, or whatever it is. Okay, and when that doesn't happen, he gets really upset because he feels like he deserves something. Okay, and the truth of the matter is that women don't owe you anything. They don't owe you anything. I mean, unless you have like a straight up verbal agreement up front that's clear and both agree upon it, then sure. If someone doesn't follow through, then yes, there's an owing, but I don't see very many people actually operating that way. I really don't. So, but yeah, they get very emotional. Sometimes they'll lash out verbally. Sometimes they'll lash out physically. And essentially it's just losing control. Okay. And if they don't do it at the woman, they'll do it at themselves, right? And they'll take all that negative energy and spin it back on themselves, just smashing their self-concept, right? Driving the pain even further inward. And of course, that's not good, you know. But men were more calibrated than that. Their emotions can be there, but they don't affect what we do. It's more about being fully calibrated, and you can feel your emotions, you can be aware of your emotions, but they're not going to dictate what you do, because oftentimes when you do that, you do foolish things, right? This is when guys, they fall for a girl and they like hop in a plane and like fly to her region, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, I had to see you. It's like, yeah, that works in the movies, and like, congrats for being brainwashed, but that's not reality. But in the movies, she just like fell in love with him too. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't, right? You come off as weak. You come off as needy. You come off as too hungry. You don't look like you're in control at all. And this can be charming to a degree, but it really just does not spell that you're on top of yourself as a man. Okay. And the thing is, and this is like, again, like my woman shit test, but basically like anything that she does, if that throws you off and she gets the sense that she's in control of you, yeah, that doesn't spell attraction, right? That doesn't spell trust. That doesn't spell reliability, right? It drives down confidence. It's like, well, wait a second, like he got upset because I was just like a little annoyed, or he got upset because I was upset, or he went off and did this thing because I was feeling, really good and happy. It's like, who's in control here? So basically, if I just like act one way and feel another way, verbalize this, that, and the other, he's just gonna go jumping all over the place. It's like, what how does that make him a leader? How does that make him reliable? If every little stimuli that comes from me makes him do things, right? And then the question is, well, who's in control? And I can tell you, not a lot of women like to be in control. There's a few, and if that's how they naturally are, that's where they're comfortable, then shout out to them. But there's not many. Okay, the mind being preoccupied with the woman. Okay, so this goes also into one-itis and things like that, but it's the overthinking. It's her renting free space in your brain. And typically, if you're doing that, more often than not, she's not doing that for you. And this is what happens, because women don't pedestalize nice guys. They just don't. Like, she might think you're charming. She might think that you're really great. She might even say you're going to make some girl very happy one day. but just not her. um, uh, but yeah, it's the mind being preoccupied, with what she's doing, what she's thinking, what she's done, like reading too far into text messages, trying to sort her out. Okay. And this again, like kind of, it coincides with like being in her frame. Like your consciousness is like living in her reality, or trying to, so that you can stay one step ahead. And oftentimes you're really not one step ahead. You're actually a couple steps behind when you're doing this. All right. The way to be one step ahead is to actually just lead, because either she's going to follow you, which means your steps are in front of hers, or she's not, and that's fine. So that goes into, like, the preoccupied sort of thinking goes into trying to sort out what you can offer or what you can give her, right? This came up with the guy that I was talking with, and he was always saying, yeah, but if it's not my looks and my money, what I do for a living, what I can do in this world, like what else can I give her? And I'm thinking to myself, man, like this guy just is so disconnected from himself, because everything that you are as a man, it is valuable, right? But this requires a certain amount of self-belief, right? A certain amount of self-appreciation. And I don't mean being overblown. I don't mean being full of yourself, right? I think you should be full with self, okay, but not full of yourself. That's not the way. Like being loud and gregarious and just big-headed, like that's not believing in yourself, right? Self-belief is actually quite calm. It's still, it's quiet, and it's solid. It's like a pillar of alabaster, right? Or a pillar of granite. Okay, even better. Granite's extremely hard to work with. It's a bitch to carve. Marble, on the other hand, is quite soft. But so, yeah, like a big pillar of granite. And that's what self-belief is like. It's solid, it's grounded, it's hard, it's dense, and it's quiet. Because it doesn't have to prove anything to anybody, right? Because once you know it, then what's the point in sharing it, right? There's no point, right? It doesn't do anything, right? It's already full and solid. It's only if it's not full and solid that you have to try to get verification from others in order to top it off, right? And once you know this, then you understand that you have a lot to offer, right? Should she want to get on your program, should she want to be led by you, and you need to understand and know how she can benefit from that. And it has nothing to do with your resources. Now, if you do have good looks, if you happen to have a good amount of money, or you've got a good job, or you have an interesting life, like those are fun things that are added on top, but it's not going to make you more valuable, okay, by having those things, right? They're just extras that kind of like shine up the surface of you, but it's not going to make you into that pillar of granite, right? It doesn't do that, because all of my clients are people who are doing fantastically well in life, good looking, some of them tall, some of them very charming, but they have a really shitty self-concept, and they've come to realize that just having a lot of money and being a jet setter and having nice suits and looking great, it only goes so far, right? Women can appreciate that and they love that, but those sort of things are fun and great, and like it's nice to have in life, but it doesn't tap into their feminine core. It doesn't move them, right? It doesn't quiet them, right? Because there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of chaos that happens in a woman's mind, right? Their spirit is wild, There's a wildness to the female spirit, right? And that's great, okay? But it can be overwhelming to them, okay? And so if you can tap in, it actually slows those things down. It doesn't stop it, and you don't want it to stop, but it slows things down and gets it to like a pace that is manageable, that feels right, okay? Instead of feeling crazy, like got this like hamster wheel like going nutso in the brain. It slows those things down, and it brings a bit of peace, right? You can't do that with money. You can't do that with a yacht, right? Those things can, but they can have a positive effect, but it's temporary, right? Once you come back from the trip, a few days in or a week in, it's right back up, right? The thing spins right back up, and it's going at 8,500 RPMs, right? So, but you as a man, your core, and operating from your grounded center, operating from that pillar of granite, can have a profound effect on her that your money can't do, that your trips can't do, that have a longer effect, that like it's just being in your presence slows these things down, and she feels more calm, she feels more at ease, she feels relaxed. And this is what allows that feminine core to flourish and starts opening up and becomes more moving within your container, which you cannot buy. You can't buy the container. The closest thing you can do to buying the container is hiring me to help you build one. That's as close as you can get. But you actually have to do all the work. I just show you how. Kind of ran with that one. TC was up. What's going on, man? ET, Dan Frank, Phil, hoorah. I'm not in the military, but you know, what's up? Right, so moving on. Preoccupied, trying to sort out what to offer. Right, so like when you're in that state, right, you know exactly what to offer. And then the question is, because you understand the value, right, of the impact and the influence that you have, you then have to sort out, well, is she deserving of this? You can't just give this away to anyone and everyone, right? You'll run yourself dry, or it won't be appreciated, or they won't integrate it, right? So you have to be very choosy of who you're going to bestow this upon, you know. And it sounds arrogant, but it's more of just protecting your resources, protecting your time, protecting your mind, protecting your dick, protecting your seed, right? Protecting your money. You have to use a lot of discernment, and being cute, right, isn't enough, right? Like I appreciate beautiful women, right? Love beautiful women, but there's only so much I can do with that. Okay, like I see something pretty and I'm like, all right, cool, like I like what I see. Now what do I do with it? Okay, and if what, you know, the person or the thing doesn't serve me, it doesn't elevate my life, it doesn't move things forward, then I don't really have a purpose for it, right? It's like if you lived in the desert, you live in the middle of fucking Sahara Desert, and I'm like, bro, you know, Elon Musk just gifted me, I don't know, like his favorite Lamborghini. I don't know if he has a Lamborghini, but let's say he does. And you've been a really good friend, and I'm gonna give you this Lamborghini, and I give it to you, fly it in by helicopter, and now it's sitting next to you in the middle of the desert. Like, it's pretty and all, but it doesn't serve me. It doesn't do jack shit for me. I love it. It's pretty. I'll sit in it. Maybe I'll start up the motor, you know, but it's gonna do fuck all in the desert, being 2 inches off the ground, right? I'd be better off with you know, like a 4-wheel drive vehicle that's high up off the ground that can handle the environment. So that requires you understanding what your needs are. What do you need? What do you need from a woman, right? That hasn't anything to do with her looks. What are your desires? Right now we're getting into program. So like once you know what you need, you no longer have to ever ask a woman, what do you bring to the table? Because men are smart. Okay? Males ask women, what do you bring to the table? Because they're dumb. Men are smart. They understand what they need at their table. Right? So if you already know what you need, you don't have to ask, you tell. You say, this is what I need. This is what I desire. These are my preferences. These are my goals in the relationship. Okay? There's like a whole list of them, right? That there's maybe 12 or 13 items in my categories of what makes up a program. But those are, the like basics. So when you're operating like this, you're never trying to figure her out. Really what you're doing is you're just looking at behaviors. You're looking to see, is what she's doing in line with what I need, of what I expect? And if it is, great. And then use positive reinforcement in order to promote those same behaviors. And you can use corrective measures to knock away, there's a little bit of things that aren't quite going, that's conducive to the union. And if those are adapted to, great, right? Now you're like, because that means she's coachable. She takes on your word and does what you say, and it's for the benefit of the connection, and everybody's moving forward. Okay, but you don't want to waste your time. Okay, but anyways, okay, moving on. Nice guy stuff. We're not talking about man shit. Nice guy stuff. Trying to sort out being preoccupied with sex. Okay, a lot of nice guys, because they are lacking within themselves. They're lacking in themselves, and they are they're lacking within themselves, and they lack that self-love, right? Their cup is not full. And I talk about this often, but men have their cups full. They're full of self, right? Or full with self. They're not full of themselves. Okay? They're full with self, meaning that they don't need inputs from other people in order to feel that they have value. They don't need inputs from other people to feel better about themselves, because we do it all on our own. We do it for ourselves. Okay? So that means anything that's given to us from somebody else, it can be appreciated, and it just becomes extra. And then if that just so happens to go away because of any number of reasons, you're not at a loss, because you weren't using that in order to feel better about who you are. Okay? But nice guys, because of their unaddressed codependency issues, they will need this from the woman. Okay? They will need this from her. And oftentimes this gets translated into sex, right? Because if they're getting sex, it feels good. So they have this whole connection, this chain link between the neediness, seeking validation, getting sex, feeling good with it, and then that producing an emotional link into all those other parts, right? So for nice guys, they just don't have sex physically, and that's it. Okay, there's this deep emotional connection for them, where they're actually using her in order to feel good. Okay, much like a drug addict would, right? And I talk about this a lot, about the drug addict as the guy with nice guy syndrome. So they're preoccupied with sex, right? They're always wanting it. It's a major driving force in their behaviors, and they think that it's just physical, right? But it's not. For them, it's deeply emotional. It really is. And they, like I said, they use it to feel better about themselves. And without knowing it, they actually, when you do this, it gives power to the woman. So when you're preoccupied with getting pussy, that means the pussy has control over you. And it has control over you even before you've actually met a woman or started talking to her, because it's something that's already in your mind when you wake up. Right? Now, it might not be on your conscious mind when you wake up, but it's there. And then at some point, it goes onto your conscious mind, which now means that that content is now leading you. It's pulling your awareness. It's pulling your attention, which then pulls your behaviors. It pulls your words. It pulls your other thoughts. And so essentially, you're giving your power away into pussy, and the woman then becomes, since they're the possessors of pussy, they now become the leaders of you. And they didn't ask to be put in a place of leadership. So now they're in a place that they don't want to be, without even talking about it, without even having it out in the air. This is all something in your head, and this will change your behaviors. And to think that she's not going to pick up on the fact that now she's in control, you're being naive. You're being really naive. Women are very sensitive to these things. They can feel. It might not be like a rational thing, like, oh, I'm in control here, right? Maybe for some women, but it's a feeling, and they can't escape the feeling. They're very, very aware of these subtle feelings, these shifts that happen between people. Okay, guys aren't really sensitive to this, right? It's just how we're wired, generally speaking. All right, women are very sensitive to the subtleties of human interaction, and they can feel when they've got the power. And some might recognize it, some may not. But you can feel it in the gut or somewhere in your body, but it's certainly not between your legs. It's not arousing when you realize that they're in power, unless they have a kink around that, like they get aroused by being in control. But that's not super common. Not super common. So nice guys, they're preoccupied with sex, and they don't realize that basically makes them into a slave. So the next one here is the woman never operating on their time. This goes into frame. With the guy always operating in her frame, the same thing happens with the time, right? Because frames exist in time. So he's always operating on her time. Like, oh, when are you free? Well, I can do something on Thursday night. Okay, great, I can do Thursday night too. Right? Like, he's always willing to put himself on her time, and willing to follow her preferences, willing to follow her needs, willing to follow her desires, and constantly taking all of yours and just pushing them off. And you're like, no, baby, hey, those don't matter. Those don't matter at all. I'm here for you. You and only you. All right? And like, again, there's something charming about that, but there's also something sickening about it. Maybe a woman will take you on for a short period of time, but after a while, the ick will grow, and she will stop losing attraction, and then she'll stop losing respect. And once respect is gone, that's it. There's really no coming back from that. Maybe not 100%, but it's, I would say, just it's extremely difficult to come back once a woman's lost respect for you, because it's like she has like a particular perception of you, and then it's like clinked into this new locked position, and that's where the disrespect is. Like, I've got respect, and it's clink, disrespect, and it's like once it's there, it's like kind of locked into position. And it would take a lot of finagling. It would take a lot of effort, I think, to try to get that shifted out. And why you would do that, I have no idea. But yeah, once respect is gone and attraction is gone, like, you're just wasting your time. You really are. So So it's safest for a lot of nice guys is just to operate on her time. Yep, and that's what they do. Being afraid to tell the woman what is needed or desired, and if not met, she can take a hike. All right. Um, the nice guys, they're not really fully integrated with their needs and desires, which is it's the connections go all the way back to childhood. It's a really convoluted mess. It's not exactly linear, but it has to be sorted out if you have this. And they're really afraid to tell women what they need. They're really afraid to tell women what they want, and they're scared shitless of it because they're afraid, like, well, what if she doesn't like what I need? What if she has pushback with what I want? And such where she just will not budge. She's not even willing to have a discussion about it. They're afraid of saying, well, I'm sorry, then I can't be here anymore. You're gonna have to take a hike, or I'm gonna take a hike, or one of us is getting out of here, because that would be the rational thing. But dudes with nice guy syndrome, they're very irrational, and they will rationalize to themselves that it's okay to ignore their needs. And if things get too bad, right, they won't ever address these things. They'll just like let it get so bad that either the woman breaks up with him, which is likely the case, or eventually he just like moves on instead of expressing himself, instead of expressing his needs and his desires, and just making things very clear and known. And I don't understand where the fear comes from. Like even guys who don't have like serious nice guy syndrome have a problem with this. There's nothing wrong with telling a woman, this is what I need. There's really nothing, there's no crime happening there. Okay, you're only afraid of the reaction. You're afraid of it not being accepted. You're afraid of it being made fun of or something like that. And then you're also afraid of dealing with that. Like dealing with, okay, so what if she makes fun of it? Right? Who cares? That's just somebody who isn't in line with your needs. In which case you just leave. It's that easy, right? But the problem is that these guys that get into situations and they're there for a long time, and now there's time invested, and then maybe they eventually get their balls drop down from their stomach, and they can open their mouth and say, hey, this is what I need. And now they're afraid of losing their 3-year investment or 5-year investment, or their marriage, or something along those lines. And so it's like, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like, so you're willing to keep the relationship but let yourself die. That's so bizarre. That's so bizarre. I don't care how much money you take from me. It doesn't matter. If I'm losing myself, like that there's no number that you can put on that. Because guys will be like, well, if I get divorced, like she's gonna like take all my shit, It's like, okay, but that's replaceable. It's just shit, right? Right now, you're suffering the loss of your dignity. You're suffering the loss of your identity. You're completely detached from your masculine core. Everything is all screwed up, and you're saying it's worth it for the sake of saving some money. That's pathetic. It's fearful, right? No one's gonna affect my identity, ever. 1 second. All right, sorry, pardon me. All right, moving on here. Okay, being afraid to tell her no. This is a huge one. Like, being able to just stand up for yourself. Like, the easiest way to stand up for yourself is simply saying no to something. Where she's like, oh, let's let's go hiking this weekend. And like, you hate hiking. And you're like, okay, yeah, let's go. Right. And in your mind, you're dying. You're like, fuck, I can't stand hiking. Right. Instead of just saying, no, I don't want to go hiking. Because it's like, well, what if she doesn't like that answer? It's like, what are you afraid of her? Is she not entitled to not like something? What are you so afraid of? So she doesn't like it. Okay, and she's entitled to her feelings and her opinions. If she wants to go hiking, she can go hiking. I don't have to go hiking if I don't want to go hiking. But you have to have the balls to say no. I say, listen, if you want to go hiking, you can go hiking. All right? Make sure your GPS is turned on so I know where you're at in case you get lost in the woods. Right? Or take a friend, but I'm not going hiking. All right? And, you know, in the same sense, like if I want to do something and she doesn't want to, I'm going to hold her to the same standard. If she doesn't want to, she can say no. And it shouldn't bother you because she's entitled and has the ability to say no because we want to give people free will, yes? So if you want to give her free will, why aren't you giving yourself free will? Yeah? Everybody gets free will. So, but in order to exercise your free will, you have to have a little bit of balls. Yeah? You have to have some balls. You have to have a spine. You need to be able to stand upright and, you know, have your legs straddled apart. Stand there with your hands on your hips. And you say, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. Right? This is, sorry, I got distracted here. This is one of the biggest things, but also the easiest, and it's one of the most powerful things you can do as a man, is be very, very comfortable in saying no. And just as practice, like if you guys are in a relationship, right? Any fellas are in a relationship, just practice it. Say no to something that's not a big deal to say no to, right? That you normally say yes to. You know, say you're sitting there, you're watching a show or something like that, and she's like, "Oh, baby, can you take out the trash now?" And you say, "No." And just try it. Just exercise, because it's not going to be the end of the world, right? And like some of you guys listening to this be like shaking your boots, like if just thinking about it makes you uncomfortable. Why? Why are you scared of that little girl over there? Why? What's she gonna do? Like break your nose? Right? Make you feel bad? Right? She's gonna get upset. See, that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of her emotions, which is very strange, right? It's like, well, what woman's emotions did you learn to be afraid of? Right? You learned this a long time ago. You learned a long time ago as a boy that mommy's emotions that are big can be scary. And we don't like scary. So we're going to try to avoid these big, scary emotions because it makes me feel uncomfortable. So you're going to say yes, even though you'd rather say no. Because if you said no, there's a possibility that those big, scary emotions might come out and you have no idea what to do with them. Because little boys never learn how. They just learn to cope. They learn to cope with those reactions. The reactions that come from when they observe the big scary emotions from mommy. And this is what grown men are doing. This is what grown ass men are doing, right? They're still operating what's called arrested development, right? Arrested means frozen, stopped, okay? Because what happens in the development of nice guy syndrome is that at some point there's some kind of event or some kind of trauma or something like that, something that freezes their emotional development so that they're stuck at like the age of 7 or 11 or 13 or 5, okay? and their emotional development stays there as their bodies and minds age. So anything to do with emotions, they're dealt with in the way that 11-year-old would, or that 7-year-old would, or that 5-year-old would. It's very strange, but this is what happens. This is how nice guys behave. So it's no wonder that they're afraid to say no. But really, the only way out is through discomfort, right? When I said that at the very beginning, behind pain is truth. And if you've got the wisdom to see it, then you'll grow tremendously. But you have to move, you have to lean into the discomfort. You have to lean into the pain. Tell her no. Even though you're scared. Right? Just try it. Just try it. Now, if it's like, hey, can you take the dog to the vet because I think he's choking on something, right? Or he stepped on something in his paw and he's bleeding. Can you take the dog to the vet? And that's not a good time to say no. Okay. Just on something stupid, right? Like taking out the trash, right? So just dumb stuff, easy stuff that's inconsequential. Just say no, right? And if she says, I don't want, like if she says, well, why not? It needs to go out. You say, I'm not doing it right now, right? And if you want, you can throw in, I'll do it in 15 minutes, or I'll do it in a half an hour. I'm busy, right? But don't explain too much. Don't dear it. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't excuse. Don't rationalize. Just say no. Okay? Very, very powerful. It's like the first and the most powerful boundary that you could possibly express. All right, obsessive compulsive behaviors with regards to women. That's the next one I observed here. Having like obsessive thoughts, and this coincides with the whole like her living rent free in your brain, and you know, catering and trying to be one step ahead. Sometimes nice guy behavior will show itself in a way that's like in hyperdrive of these behaviors, right? And this is when it can get somewhat concerning, because it's like, wait a second, why are you obsessing this way? Why are you putting so much energy into this woman that you barely know, who has not earned even one finger hold onto your program? She hasn't earned her way into anything. You just think she's really cute, she's really hot, or she's really beautiful. And that's right there, like that's like her whole value. And the fact that you think you have the opportunity to interact with her in some way and possibly have sex, right? It's like, but you know, how, like there's nothing really you can do with any of that, right? So you're just this passenger. You're a passenger in the interactions. You're not actually leading it. You're not influencing it. You're not in control. You have, like, you don't have even the lower hand. You have no hand, right? There's like the upper hand. You don't have the upper hand. You don't have the lower hand. You don't have a hand at all. You have nothing. You're just there to react to whatever the woman says, whatever she does. Okay. And you're there. You're there to like, you know, try to like jump in, you know, get in where you fit in, that sort of mentality. But yeah, and this can lead to like really obsessive compulsive behaviors. I don't mean like in the classical clinical sense, you know, where you know, every time you pass the corner of your counter, you like have to tap it 3 times. You know, that's some serious OCD. You know, or like lining up your toothbrushes in a perfect row with all their heads facing the same way. Nothing like that. But it's more so like the thought processes, the obsessive thought processes as it relates to the girl that you have whinitis about. Okay. This is a big one. I mentioned it a little bit before, but placing your mind in the mind of the woman in an attempt to be one step ahead or to meet her needs. Okay. And you know, this also, like, you might think like, ooh, this is a good strategy. excuse me, this is a good strategy for, just being a great guy, right? I'm trying to get to know her preferences, her needs, what she likes, what she doesn't like, and trying to be really attentive. Okay, but what the guys are really doing, they're not really doing it for her. That's the sick part, right? That's the fucked up part, is that he's actually doing all that stuff for himself. And this is what nice guys don't really realize, that to them they're doing it for her, but what's actually happening is he's doing it for himself. The whole shit, all of those behaviors, his thoughts, his words, and his actions, they're all there so that he can position himself on the side of acceptance. That's it. It's not really for her, even though it appears that way on the surface. And because it feels good on the receiving end as the woman, oftentimes she's not likely to recognize what's happening. That, like, it really has nothing to do with her. He's idealized her into this caricature in his mind. Like, he's not actually seeing who she is. They never do. They will never actually see a woman. Do you know how you can actually see a woman? When she becomes vulnerable. When she becomes soft, like putty or clay. When she becomes open. That's when you can actually see a woman. And guys who have nice guy syndrome, because they're so actually preoccupied with themselves, they never get to see a woman for who she actually is. They never get to see her feminine core. And it's I know, it's wild. Like, it's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing to see. And what's interesting is that it's nothing that you can actually see with your eyes. I mean, but you do see something. It's hard to describe. But I don't know. Her sitting isn't just sitting, or her standing isn't just standing. Her walking isn't just walking. It's different. There's a difference in behavior. It's very slight, but and sometimes coarse, but there's this difference in behaviors that, like, on the surface they could be the same, but there's a difference between when a woman is behaving, doing one particular action and from a place of guarding the self, and the same action but done from the place of vulnerability. And when you're experiencing this on the side of the man, the clarity, it's like the difference between night and day. And I don't know, it's just a beautiful thing to see. And these guys will never get to see it. Never. Even non-nice guys, just like regular dudes that aren't afflicted with this disorder, they don't get to see that either, right? Because it requires a certain mindset and behavior set, maybe a set of principles within the man that that promotes trust, because trust cannot, or vulnerability cannot exist without a heavy dose of trust. And so if the woman can't trust you, then she can't open up to you. She can't be vulnerable to you. And then your influence and your guiding can only go so far, right? It's like a surface level amount of influence. It's not exactly transformative, okay? And I think that, guys, once you get a little taste for that woman transforming because of your influence, because of just who you are, it's something you'll never forget. And you're like, man, that's what I want to see. Like, fuck her pussy. Right? I want to get in her brain. I want to get into her spirit. I want to get up like in her, right? Because that's where you can really see, like, and I'm saying like there's no comparison between that and just like her spreading her legs. There's no comparison. But once you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll know. And it's like, a lot of guys, they'll never get there because they're not of the they don't have the goods to facilitate that much trust. And the funny thing is that if it's like a weird catch-22, because if you try to get this, you won't get it. That's the weird little game that God likes to play. If you try to get it, then that means it's that the character is offset. The motivation isn't clean. Right? I'm just saying that so it's just weird. It's like, simply put, it's kind of like, when you're not actively going after sex, that's when it comes to you. Right? Because women are like, wait a second, why isn't that guy like coming after me? Here, let me throw my pussy at him. Because all these other guys, they want to fuck me. They tell me all the time, they're chasing after me, hounding me. But that guy, what's up with him? He's kind of cute, but he's not moving because of me. Not like all these jokers who are predictable. Like, why isn't he all over me? Let me just give it to him and see what happens. Right? That happens all the time for men. Right? Who aren't reactive in that way to pussy. They're not led by it. So you get it when you're not controlled by it. Okay, when it's not a desire of yours, right? Again, you can still appreciate, but when it's not a strong desire, all right? Versus the guys who have the strong desire, they never get anything. Never. Maybe rarely. And they're the ones who could say, oh man, last night I got lucky. Because yeah, you actually did get lucky. You accidentally, what do they call that? It's like, I think like Lucario said, macking on accident. Like that happens, right? Macking on accident happens. But that's not really it. Like, that's not really doing it, right? Because for the most part, having that hunger actually kind of like frightens women, unless she's really like attracted to you. But that's rare, okay? To have that really, really high level of interest. Typically, your hunger will actually make a woman back off and not trust you, okay? So it's kind of like that. So if you're after it, if you're after that openness, if you're after the vulnerability, if you're trying to see it, if you're trying to bring it out, it actually makes the woman harden up and not become soft. And your efforts to show her that she can just reveal that you're not that guy. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot to it. And what's this other one here? Oh, nice guy syndrome, simp stuff, women as a 10, right? Like, I heard this guy like, oh man, she's so hot, she's such a 10. And I'm like, come on, dude, you know me. There's no such thing as 10s. Like, I don't care. Megan Fox is walking down the street at me, or who's my favorite? Sofia Vergara. I always mispronounce her name, but I mean, she's gorgeous. But she's not a 10 either, right? Because if I meet Sophia and she's unenthusiastic, she's not curious, she's not open-minded, she doesn't take direction well, this is nothing. I can't do anything with her. I can just appreciate her beauty, and that's it. That's it. There's nothing I can do, right? I can't do anything with a woman that's not coachable. I can't do anything with a woman who's not curious. I can't do anything with a woman who's not open-minded. I can't do anything with a woman who is unenthusiastic. She's just a pretty-looking paperweight, you know? Just a pretty-looking NPC. And that's it. Okay? So, but that's what makes a woman a 10. She's a 10 if she's enthusiastic. She's a 10 if she has an open mind. If she's got curiosity. If she has a willingness to take direction. And if she's enthusiastic. Like, these things These are the things that are more important to me than a woman's looks. And this is what oh, and sorry, I missed the sexual attraction, right? So there has to be some level of sexual attraction, and that isn't always entirely linked with visual appeal. Like I've met some women that I've been very sexually attracted to, but they're not exactly stunners, right? They're not ready to be like a swimsuit model, okay? But there's just something about them. There may be something primal within us, and we're like, oh yeah, there's some sexual attraction here, but not my like type. You know what I mean? Visually. So, but when you put those things together, those 5 things, that's what makes a woman a 10. 10s and looks just doesn't fucking exist. It doesn't exist. It's just a perception. You're just projecting onto this person who just so happened to win the genetic lottery. That's it. That's it. They just got lucky. Okay? I mean, unless they like had surgery or whatever, you know what I mean? But generally speaking, they just got lucky at birth. Okay? And you think that's amazing. No, what's amazing is her behavior towards you. That's what dictates what a 10 is. Okay? And the 10 even still doesn't exist because 10 implies there's nowhere to go. So at the very best, she could have like a 9.8. That's it. Because there's always going to be room for improvement. Always. Okay? But perfection is not good. We don't want perfection because that implies that we can't progress. You can't progress perfection. So, I don't want a 10. I want someone that I can encourage growth with. Okay, and the last one here for nice guy behaviors that I recognize in this guy's call is a lack of boundaries and hatchet use. Okay, for you guys who are familiar with my show, you know about the hatchet. I talk about it often. It's simply a tool to enforce boundaries, and this coincides with using no. Okay, it's along the same lines, but more philosophical, I guess. It's wider. No is a very specific tool, but a lack of boundaries nice guys have, and the use of the hatchet. So for those of you who don't know, the 3 main tools of a man is the hatchet, the compass, and the axe. Okay. The hatchet is used to check unwanted behavior. Now, this could be something that's spoken or something that is done. And immediately, once the woman says the thing or does the thing, it is checked, right? The behavior is addressed. And you basically say those words or those actions are not allowed here. They're not happening. That's not how we speak here. That's not how we operate here. I'm never to see that again. That's what the hatchet is, okay? The compass always has to go with the hatchet, always, okay? Because it's not enough to say, this is what I don't like, or this is not allowed, all right? Like if we look at the laws around this, they tell us what's allowed and what's not allowed. They tell you both sides, okay? That's what the use of the compass is for. Okay, so the hatchet is the no, the compass is the yes. So if say you're talking and she rudely interrupts you, okay, raises her voice a little bit and interrupts you while you're talking, immediately you address that. The hatchet comes out, whack. I'm sorry, excuse me. Before you continue, I need to address this. When we're talking, interruption is not allowed. I'm not going to do that to you, and you're not going to do that to me. Do you understand? And hopefully they'll say yes. Okay? And then here's the compass. So it's not enough to just say no and end it. Okay? You have to give the compass the new direction of what you expect. So you say, if you do have something to say that's really important, politely excuse yourself. and say, excuse me, I have a question about what you just said, or excuse me, I've got a comment about something you just said. Or you wait your turn to speak. Those are the only things that are allowed. Do you understand? And hopefully they'll say, yes, I understand, because those are pretty clear instructions. Okay. And then you go back to what you're saying, and then you stop and you say, okay, it's your turn. All right. Or is there anything you'd like to add? Or do you have a question about what I just said, or whatever, however you want to continue the conversation? So that's just an example of how you use the hatchet. You immediately stop the unwanted behavior, or you immediately address it, and you say that it's not allowed, and then you give clear instructions on what is allowed. Okay? Now, this also requires that you're not a fucking asshole, okay? Because you can't be correcting someone on something that you do, okay? So, being a leader isn't like a do as I say, not as I do, okay? Like, it's a do as I do, period. Say as I say, period, okay? So you can't enforce something that you don't do. I mean, I'm sure you've all have seen, like I live in New York, there's a lot of police around. And we've seen the police just like roll through red lights. And you look at that, you're like, come on, man. Like, you're the law enforcer. You're the example, okay? And so you're saying, like, basically, well, I can roll through red lights because I'm the police officer, but don't follow me, okay? Don't do what I do. You have to stay in line. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up, right? So the same thing happens with you as a man, as a leader. You can't be telling somebody not to do something that you do, right? Like, hypocrisy and manhood don't go well together. They don't. So you have to be on top of your shit. So if there's anything that you're going to be checking, just make sure that it's something that you have under control within yourself first. Okay? Because then that sounds like you're reaching for control, or you're trying to affect the situation based on your emotions. And that's no way to lead either. Okay? Leadership is based on principles. Okay? So that is the conclusion of this evening's show. Just remember that rules are good for her mental health, as it says in the banner here. Spanking is also good for her mental health. Okay, so if you do have a girlfriend, you have a wife, you should talk to her about incorporating a bit of spanking, and like not just in like sexy play, okay? Like once a week. It's like, hey, let's maybe like get a little book on spanking, or just book a call with me and we can talk about how to go about it. And just say like, hey, once a week, like maybe like every Friday, and every Friday evening after work, to let off a little bit of steam. And it's not gonna like, I'm gonna beat your ass till you're crying, like not that kind of spanking, okay? Like low to mid-grade spanking. And do it for like a couple of weeks, right? Or maybe like twice a week, something like that. Maybe like every Wednesday evening, every Friday evening, or Tuesday and Friday. Then report back, right? Either come here or just like converge with each other and say like, hey, like, what do you notice? You talk to her and say like, what do you notice within yourself emotionally? How is this affecting you? Like, do you find it as like stress relief? Do you find it fun? Is it annoying? Do you find it having no effect on you whatsoever? And I've not come across very many who say it has no effect on me whatsoever. So, that sort of thing. Rules is more complex. So, because then you're getting into control aspects and all that sort of stuff. So, but yes, I encourage you, if you are, you want to add something new that is actually fun and transformative, I encourage you to bring spanking into your life. She's never too old for a spanking. So with that, I bid you guys a good evening, and I appreciate you who have been here on the live. I appreciate your support. If you need a call, If you want to talk about anything regarding relationships, dating, sex, marriage, what have you, the free call link is in the description of this video and every other video. So get in touch, right? It's not going to harm you in any kind of way. It will actually benefit your life. And we can talk about options from there moving forward if you wish. And to those of you who are catching on the replay, I appreciate your support as well. All right, everybody, take it easy. Have a great night.